the worst food that you can eat on a fat loss journey. It's obviously going to be Indian food, isn't it? I mean, Indian food has to be terrible for you if you want to achieve your goals. All the oils and the carbs. What a recipe for disaster. No. One element of this is just a massive misunderstanding people have with nutrition, which is cool. But I still see people that should know better espousing this belief that we should be eating this boring, bland and dry food because somehow through not enjoying your food, you're more likely to get to your goal quicker. If I'm frank, I'm annoyed that people still think that foods we have been eating as a culture and eating for generations is somehow the cause of weight gain, or it's stopping us from moving forwards towards our goal of weight loss. So let's look at 3 things that people say about Indian food that inherently isn't true. Indian food is full of fat and carbs. Yeah, no, this is inherently untrue. I'm going to give you a dish right now that we eat commonly. So here's a little sag, roti and dahi. It's calculated as a normal portion for what an individual should be eating. This is an example of exactly what it looks like if we break this meal down into numbers. So you see 43 grams of carbs, 16 grams of protein and 15 grams of fat. So that's 17.2% of protein in that meal. Within the EU, the European Commission consider a product labelled or claims to be a source of protein must contain at least 12% and a high protein product. So this meal hits that goal, and that's before I've made any tweaks to the recipe to make it even better for your goals. Here's the same meal, but with a few game-changing Indian Body Coach tweaks. I've added a little bit of Apatina paneer to it, which is low fat and high in protein. I've changed the dahi to low fat Greek yogurt instead of traditional natural yogurt, and I didn't butter the roti. Now the meal is 33.8% protein, still the same food, a few minor adjustments, but clearly the myth that Indian food is just carbs and fat and inherently unhealthy has just been dispelled. There is something very important to note here, which I'll discuss further in point 3.
I cut roti out of my diet and have healthier carbs instead.
What does that even mean? Well, roti itself is high carbs and carb heavy, and I need to switch that up to something healthier. Okay, so out of interest, what are you switching that to, which is healthier?
I have sweet potato, it's much better for you. I have rice, it's healthier than roti.
Let's just look at the numbers. Look, calories are roughly matched, carbs are higher in rice, protein lower in rice, and fat lower in rice. Also, fibre is higher in roti.
But fat is fattening.
No. Over-consuming calories in general is going to be fattening.
But what type of flour is that? Is that some special flour you're using that is healthier?
No. Use any of these flours. They aren't massively different from one another.
But carbs are bad.
No. Let me read a quote from this paper. In this current study, diets were isocalorically prescribed and achieved comparable weight loss, which suggested that the caloric deficit, independent of the macronutrient composition, is the primary determinant of weight loss. So in English, it's not the carbs or the fat content of your diet that will help you lose fat. It's dependent on the total calories consumed. And if you're in fact in a calorie deficit, that's what matters if your long-term goal is fat loss. Also, complex carbs, aka sweet potato and roti, they're both broken down through digestion into the simplest form, i.e. both will get turned into glucose. Once it has been turned to glucose, it will either be used by the muscle or brain, stored for later use, or used in the production of DNA or RNA, which we don't need to get into today. In essence, you don't need to cut roti out of your diet unless you want to needlessly punish yourself and make visiting your family unnecessarily awkward. The third point I hear all the time about Indian food.
I have to avoid eating at family occasions, or celebrations, as the food isn't consistent with my goal.
I get it, and I know where you're coming from when you say this. Let's just look at a typical intake at a wedding reception. We've got vegetarian and non-vegetarian options here. So the vegetarian ones are 1,520 calories for 3 courses, and the non-vegetarian are 1,726 calories for 3 courses. So knowing that the total intake will influence weight loss, as discussed earlier, if you didn't eat a great deal else that day, or you had a light brunch, then many of you would still be able to create a total daily deficit at this point. But here is the key: your portion sizes, they really matter. The main reason Indian food has been touted as bad is that it tastes so good, and with anything that tastes good, you're likely to want more of it. But when you understand your unique portion sizes and what a plate of food should look like, then you realize that it's not the type of dish that's unhealthy, it's the choices that you have been making. A simple hack at a celebration to stay in your calorie deficit would be to either reduce your portion sizes per dish, so slightly less starters, mains and desserts. Yes, that does mean that you're not devouring everything that's on your plate, or to skip one of the dishes, i.e. only have starters and mains, or mains and desserts. Ultimately, the food is fine. It's your mindset that will change the game for you here. I hope that this has helped you clear a few myths from your mind and find peace in the fact we don't have to turn our back on our culture, on the foods that we love and enjoy, the foods that are an integral part of our family life, just because we want to drop a few pounds. Now, I hope you can use this information to prove the doubters wrong, just as so many of my clients have done. Break the cycle and change the narrative towards your weight loss journey today. Enjoy your food so you don't feel overly restricted all of the time, to improve your adherence and stay consistent.